support. Curtis Fleming is there on the edge of the area. Fleming for Craig Hignett. Hit it, Higgy. Higgy hits the treble!
Ravanelli coming alive again. Juninho wants the ball played to him. Ravanelli spots out Emerson!
Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown podcast. And well, we lost. Sunderland do the double over Middlesbrough for the first time since 1961-62, and in truth, we should have seen it coming. Matt and Tom join me for this one. I'm going to kick this show off with our one key takeouts, but before I get into yours, I'm going to discuss some that we got sent in to us yesterday. Tom says, same old story, own worst enemy. Jasper says, whatever goes up must come down. Whenever we play well, we are only moments away from folding like a deck chair and packing it in. Nathan says, and this one's quite funny, Barca at the front, Barnett at the back. I think that's quite disrespectful to Barnett personally, but I get it. And then Liam, ending with a positive, says, Bergzorg is a proper workhorse, earned his place. Travers gave me a lot more confidence, a great upgrade. Feel for Giles, a proper shocker, but hope he picks his head up and makes up for it going forward. Yeah, that was a cruel, cruel way to lose that game. Right, you two, what are your key takeouts from yesterday's game? Tom, I'm going to start with you with this.
Just tired of this season, really. And I think yesterday's game, although I do feel like we were unlucky to lose it at the end in the way that we did, I do feel like there were moments in that game that showed why Sunderland are where they are and why we are where we are, because we were so lackadaisical in our passing at times. Just gave it away far too much, played our way into trouble far too much. And I will say the players seem too relaxed and confident about where they're passing at times. And I was thinking to myself during the game yesterday, I was like, we've got people playing outfield like prime Zach Steffen in goal from a couple of seasons ago. They look that relaxed about where they're passing it. But the confidence in that is absolutely misplaced because we have no reason to be that confident in our passing at the moment. I will say it's probably been about the last 9 or 10 games that we've looked this way and looked really disjointed. We've mentioned it on the podcast a few times. I've personally said, like, this is usually one of the first signs I see before, managerial changes, things like this going wrong, because it's really simple stuff. And then on the other side of things, you've got Sunderland. I don't recall them misplacing many passes at all. I thought they were a great passing team last night, and they looked well drilled. And although, yes, they did concede too, it wasn't, a carbon copy of the game at the Stadium of Light where, they got the goal and then they could just kind of sit deep and, make us and control the game without having the ball. I still felt like they looked sharp and they looked well drilled, and that is really something we're missing this season at the moment. And, we've got, a week and a half on the training ground now. We need to put that right. And personally, after seeing what was going on after the match last night, which was absolutely embarrassing, by the way, at our own stadium, I want to see a reaction from the players in the next game. They should. I saw a tweet earlier today saying, it was quoting Sunderland's "hang it in the Louvre," rubbish banter tweet, and saying it actually said, hang that everywhere in Rockcliffe, hang it everywhere in the training ground. And I was like, you know what? Yes, do it, because they need to be reminded of that and how unacceptable that is. And, that should at least give us the drive and the motivation to have a bit of a reaction in the next game. It's going to be difficult. It's Sheffield United away, but we need to see that.
Yeah, I completely agree. Matt, what's your wonky takeout from yesterday's game?
Yeah, my one key takeout is a pretty blunt one, and that is that at this rate, we will not make the playoffs. And it's as simple as that. It's not it's not me being reactionary from yesterday. It's not a subjective opinion. I think you can play all the lovely football you want. You can have all the great attacking talent in the world. But if we keep making mistakes and throwing points away like this, we're going to make it a next to impossible job to get ourselves in there. And when I say it's not me being reactionary or subjective, at this current trajectory that Boro are on, I had a look yesterday and we're currently accumulating around 1.46 points per game. And if that continues, we'll finish on 67 points. And that's nowhere near good enough for the average of getting playoffs. No team's ever gotten into the playoffs with a points tally that low. I think the average is 72, 73 or something like that. So the stone cold reality is, just looking at history, just looking at what it's taken in past seasons, we are not going to get there unless we sort it out. And off the back of what I said last week, that we're sort of lingering above a trapdoor, by the time we play Sheffield United next week, all of our playoff rivals play once, some even play twice. So I don't know if it's going to take the reality of us dropping to 9th or 10th to wake up and realise that we have slipped right into a mid-table scrap and a playoff scrap with 7 or 8 teams fighting for 2 spots. Maybe that's what it'll take. I don't know. But we are stumbling and staggering into an almighty scrap that I just don't have the belief we'll get out of in our current state. So, yeah, early on in the season, very early on, it was top 2. Could we get that? That quickly was out the window. Then it was, can we hang on to top 4? We need a few results. Then we can stick with Sunderland. Only a few wins and we'll be all right. That's gone. 14 points is the gap now, which is awful. How long are we going to be saying the same about top 6? Top 2's gone, top 4's gone. How long before in a few weeks we might be going, well, cut the results and we might be back in the top 6 race? I feel like the season is slipping through our fingers right in front of our very eyes, and we just don't seem to realise it. Probably because the league table is sparing our blushes a little bit with where we still are somehow and how poor all the other teams are. So I think it'll only take a few more results and weeks like this for reality to truly set in as to where we are going at this moment, and it needs to turn around. We need to turn the tide quickly. So that, and yeah, I back up Tom's point 100%. When I saw that picture of Isidore holding the corner flag up with the Sunderland shirt, it just boiled my blood. It shouldn't be happening. Pair that with Burnley 2 seasons ago, getting promoted, Coventry. It's just sickening to see this continually happening. So yeah, it's never exactly lit a fire under them before. So whether it will this time, I don't know. But things have got to change.
Yeah, I echo that immeasurably. And off the back of it, my key takeout is that we're not going anywhere this season. I accepted that about a month ago. And if now isn't the time to accept that, then when will be? Because we keep seeing the same costly errors happening over and over again, week after week. Charitable goals conceded, poor game management, not taking our opportunities to kill the game off when we could. We haven't recorded back-to-back victories since November, where we recorded 3 in a row against QPR, Luton and Oxford. If you look at the season as a whole, Boro have only won 2+ games in succession twice this season. That's not good enough. And I'll probably get shit for this. Someone will probably say, well, how dare you have a podcast when you think this way, and go support another club and do something else with your Saturdays. But I don't really care about this season anymore. If the season ended tomorrow, I'd be okay with it. And unfortunately, that's just how I feel. And it's, as you said, Matt, not reactionary. It's not based on the Sunderland game. It's an accumulation of the same thing happening over and over again. Just Groundhog Day. And it's immensely frustrating. We will talk about the Sunderland game, though. It was a horrendous way to lose a game like that. Own goal from Ryan Giles in the 87th minute. We have been used to defeats recently with 4 in our last 5 in all competitions. But Tom, how are you feeling after this one?
Just sick, to be honest. I managed to get out of my seat and down the stairs to get to the concourse for around the time the final whistle went last night, because I didn't want to be sat there while they were all celebrating. it was bad enough we had to sit in the car park for so long because they wouldn't get out the stadium, celebrating like they've won the league. Yeah, it was a horrible way to lose it. I feel really sorry for Ryan Giles. I'm sure he's probably getting a load of stick from Hull fans who were actively wishing to see him fail because, their manager wasn't good enough to get anything out of him early in the season, I guess. And yeah, it's a horrible way to lose it. I did think, I always kind of I sit there and I prep in mentally what I'm going to say on the podcast and try not to tempt fate while I'm doing it. And I was kind of thinking what I'm going to say about a 2-2 draw. Then that happens, and it was almost it was like a second of silence before the kind of cheers set in, and that second seemed to last for ages. It's a horrible kind of sinking feeling when we realised what had happened. I did think a draw would have been fair. I think both teams had their chances to win. But like I said earlier, I think at points yesterday, how well-drilled Sunderland were and how sloppy we were, ultimately didn't deserve to win it. We had our chances. Force could have taken his at 1-0. Force takes that, you're looking at a completely different game. And that can be said for the game at the Stadium of Light as well. Conway scores a header; it's a completely different game, and it's annoying that that's happened twice against Sunderland this season. But yeah, it was a sickening way to lose it. But overall, I'm sick of this season. Don't get me wrong, I'm still going to be going every game. I know there was a YouTube comment last time about my response to a completely different question saying, you're saying you're never going to go again and stuff. Absolutely not the case. I pay for my season ticket. I'll be there every game. I'll still be there sporting. But the thing is, it's been a while since I've actively looked forward to going to the Riverside this season. And as much as people can make the comparison between, entertaining football under Carrick when that's happened, and, people kind of rewriting history about Karanka's football, saying it was boring and conveniently forgetting about a lot of the high-scoring results. That's not the last time I was excited because Carrick's first season was great, but that's what you want to feel going into a home game. You want to go in there feeling like we're not going to lose this game. And at the moment, I'm not going in there thinking we're going to win any game at home. And it's draining going to the Riverside and seeing the same mistakes constantly, never learning from anything. And even with the transfer business at the end of the window, I don't feel like anything's going to change. It was a very kind of odd approach. I get that January is not an easy window to buy in, but the squad just seems really lopsided now, and I don't get what we're trying to do the second half of the season, and that's given me even more reason to not be positive about going to the Riverside at the moment.
Matt, thoughts and feelings on that Boro performance yesterday?
It's frustrating because we've played worse. It wasn't the worst performance in the world. I thought we were good in spells, as were they. As Tom alluded to earlier, though, the reason why they are 14 points clear, and I looked at some of the numbers between the two sides before the game, and we actually were better offensively than what they were, creatively and goal scoring. XG against was identical, but we conceded 12 more goals than what they had. And yesterday, I think, was a microcosm of exactly why they are where they are and why we are where we are. No matter how we perform, or maybe how they perform, they find ways of winning games. We find ways of losing games. And I thought yesterday we started well. I thought we started the game pretty well. Great atmosphere pre-match, by the way. I loved everything about pre-match. I thought it's a shame it went to waste on the result in the end. I thought it was really good. atmosphere. I loved there was fireworks behind the ground. I don't know who set them
Yeah,
up.
I
It was
didn't
perfectly
realise
timed.
that.
Yeah,
Did
we
not
had a
realise
great
that. I
view
saw a
from the
picture.
north. Yeah,
We will do, yeah. I saw a photo. I zoomed in. I was like, is that a firework? I didn't see it from the east stand. So yeah, that was good. I think Red Faction did plan that. So yeah, that was good.
yeah. It was immense seeing the timing of that with the fire and the banners. I thought, wow, how can you not get up to perform like this? And I thought we started well. They got back into it after we scored. The goal from here, the ball from Hackney into Bergzorg was absolutely top draw. Absolutely immense ball and a great finish as well. But they got back into it, levelled it up. For me, I think we should have probably been at least a goal up, regardless, with forcing the chances that he missed. But unfortunately, second half, I felt like they had gears that they could still go into. I thought they still had more to offer, whereas I wasn't too sure we did. But then, as the second half went on, a draw would have been the right result in the end. I don't think anybody could have had anything against that. But it's our style of play. It's that same old cocktail that's cost us numerous times this season. It's a mix between us playing ourselves into trouble with our high risk, high reward, or seemingly now high risk, low reward football. It's a mix of that and just freak errors that Carrick can't legislate for. We've had the discussion so many times this season. Is it Carrick? Is it the players? Often it's both. I think the style of football, we're playing ourselves into trouble too often. I lost count of how many times Edmondson gave the ball away in the first half yesterday, especially. I don't know why he started over Dale Fry. For me, I like partnerships, and I feel like with Hackney and Morris, that's proof that if you build a partnership, it can really benefit the team. And I find it so frustrating that we're not building any partnerships in defence. Granted, we've got a new left back and goalkeeper. Why are we not playing consistently the same two centre backs? Unless Fry was injured, I don't know. But I didn't understand that yesterday. But yeah, that paired with the Giles own goal, I feel desperately disappointed for him. I'm sure he's absolutely gutted. It's just the same old again. We scored 2 good goals, but happened to concede a ton of crap ones, like we did against Preston, like we did against Portsmouth. And the unfortunate thing is this: whether it's this style of play, whether it's individuals, whether it's both, we're not scoring enough to outweigh the errors we're making at the moment. And unless that skill tips, we're going to come out on the wrong end of results more often than not, and this form's not going to turn around. So it was frustrating, I think, more so that, again, not for the first time, Sunderland didn't beat us, like Preston didn't beat us, Boro beat us once again. It's sickening, absolutely sickening.
Yeah, it's madly frustrating. And you would think that, okay, there's a bit of apathy around it, but for me, it's not apathy. I'm still getting really frustrated at Boro just costing themselves points and shooting themselves in the foot. I want to mention the last quarter or 20 minutes of the game, because Morgan Whittaker had a shot on 70 minutes, and then from there until the end of the game, we did nothing other than put the ball in our own net. But we did nothing. Like, I can't remember a single thing that we did other than that, like, at the right end. And that goal came towards the 87th minute. But even before that, I was thinking, it's 2-2. It's a tease-we-at derby, as much as the Sunderland fans want to claim that it isn't. And I just thought, okay, is this how we're going to perform? Is this how we're going to perform in the last 15, 20 minutes of the game? Just nothing really happened anyway, but our performance just completely hit like a flat line. And so when we did concede late on, I thought, well, referee or the fourth official put 5 on his board, 5 additional minutes. I thought, what's the point? Just blow the whistle. We've done bob all for the last 15, 20 minutes. It's not going to change. So I was really disappointed in Boro towards the last quarter of the game. I do want to put a positive on it, though, because Bergzorg and Hackney did score. I was thinking and saying on Twitter, maybe last week or prior to the Preston game, I want to see more goals from the likes of Bergzorg and Dork, actually, our wide players, and Hackney as well. That's now 2 goals his last 2 home games for Hayden Hackney and 2 goals his last 2 appearances for Delano Bergzorg. I felt a little bit bad that we didn't mention Bergzorg's goal after the Preston game, but it was because we had a complete comical goal that we scored that lost us that game, and I suppose it got completely flanked by or completely submerged by that goal and the discussion around it. But I've enjoyed Bergzall recently. I'm glad that he's adding more goals to his game, and Hayden Hackney as well. The goal that equalised to make it 2-2 was brilliant. Aidan Morris winning the ball high up the pitch, and then Hayden Hackney unleashing one, which is something that I feel like Hayden Hackney has been capable of doing. We just haven't seen it too often, and now we've seen it in the last 2 home games. So fingers crossed he can keep that up, because without Latte Lath, who for a few weeks prior to the Preston game we were really relying on, we need goals from other areas. So it's good to see that there's 2 areas there that, you know, we get goals from. I want to spin it back to the start of the game, because there were 5 changes for this one. One of them was Edmondson in for Fry. Matt, you discussed it, you didn't understand that change. Were you surprised that Dale Fry was dropped, Tom?
Yeah, I was surprised. I think especially when you look at the performance of Hackney yesterday, who looked absolutely well up for it, understood the importance of that match, and played like he did as well. I don't understand dropping Dale Fry for that game. I don't think Edmondson offered us anything more than Fry would have done. I think Fry would have been another one who got the importance of that game and would have been well up for it. And I think he does have a good developing partnership with Van den Berg as well. I really don't understand that decision, unless, like has been said earlier, unless Fry was carrying a knock or something like that, in which case, you know, we don't know. But, you know, could understand that decision. Fry and Rav should have started that game. For me, they are our starting centre-backs at the moment, and obviously we can't have too many centre-back combinations right now, unless, Lenahan's planning on doing like a Royal Rumble-style return in the next few weeks and coming out of nowhere to sit on the bench and get back into the team. That, which again, it makes the decision to let Matt Clark go and not replace him quite baffling in January. Fry and Van den Berg are clearly our best centre backs and should have been starting that game, and doubly so for Fry, knowing the importance of that game and probably would have really wanted to be playing in it as well.
Edmondson looked like a complete car crash yesterday. I do not know what has happened to him, because he started his Boro career really well, but he's turned into a Looney Tunes defender. Like, with the ball at his feet, he looks completely I'm sat there in my seat and I'm like, God, don't give Edmondson the ball. He gives me the jitters. And just certain moments of his that just feel very erratic. And that's not the Edmondson that we were introduced to, because he was very good when he first started. And on Clark, Clark wanted to leave, so Boro didn't really have a choice there. But I must admit, I was a bit confused as to why Fry was dropped, because certainly right now, the discussion around what's Boro's best centre-back partnership can give me a headache sometimes. But right now, I think it is Rav and Fry. And Carrick, let's be honest, Edmondson is Carrick's favourite, or one of them, because it's very clear every time Edmondson is fit, he'll play. With the exception of, I think there was, obviously when he first came back, it was maybe they'd planned a different partnership, but that baffled me as well, I must admit. We did see 3 debuts last night though: Travers, Whittaker and Illing Jr., plus Ryan Giles's return. Open question here, is there any of those players that anybody wants to focus on?
I don't know about you guys. I didn't really make much of Travers last night. I was just a little bit unconvinced, and I'm hoping it's just maybe because he hasn't played for a while and he's going to come back and completely prove us wrong in the next few games. I don't know. I was just expecting a little bit better. I think there were times where there were saves he made where he could have held it, or he just looked a little bit shaky at times. I'm sure we're conceding 3 goals maybe wouldn't have helped with that. I'd love to just put that down to lack of match sharpness, but as an overall performance, it made me a little bit nervous.
I'm surprised at that.
I did think early in the game Ryan Giles was looking good. I think he faded as the game went on, but I think early in the game I was like, right, he is looking confident. He put in a pretty good ball early on in the game, and I was like, right, we're going to get prime Ryan Giles back. And
I just thought, wow, a good cross from the left-hand side. It is possible.
Hopefully, his head hasn't dropped too much after that own goal, or if it has, Carrick and the coaching staff can, get him a little bit more upbeat again, and hopefully going into Sheffield United. And if he starts, he's got a little bit of something to build on there. I don't want to kind of talk too much about Whittaker or Illan Jr. because I don't feel like I saw enough of them to kind of form an opinion. And I mean that's mad considering Whittaker was on the pitch as long as he was. He played a couple of decent balls. He did have a good one over to, it might have actually been Giles, crossfield ball onto the left hand side. But I don't know what to expect from Whittaker, to be honest. And I think we obviously really did miss Ben Doak yesterday, so I don't want to kind of make any comparisons on the right hand side just now. I think that would be unfair. But yeah, interesting to hear what you guys think of the new players yesterday.
Yeah, Ben Doak obviously injured. I think it was a thigh injury. You know what, Whittaker, I'm just going to call it as it is, pretty much anonymous. I said to, Argyle Life, our friends at Argyle Life asked how Morgan Whittaker's debut was, and I DM'd them and I said, not going to lie, forgot for a large part that he was on the pitch. And they said that's kind of what he does. He'll be anonymous for the majority of the game and then he'll just ping one top bins from like 35 yards out. I'm not quite sure that's the type of player that I'd like. I want a more involved player personally, but hey, if he knocks one top bins from 35 yards, then I won't be complaining. I'm surprised at your opinion on Travers. There was one good save he made from Isidore where he's moving the opposite direction. He just shifts his momentum of his body.
That was a good save, and I don't think anyone would have expected Isidore to get the shot off with that sort of power and accuracy at that point. That was a good save.
Yeah, that was a good save. I think Mark Travers is a good goalkeeper and will get better in his performances. I thought he was good yesterday, and I don't think there was a goal that he could have done better with. Although I did think for Isidore's goal, I don't know whether it was Isidore making it look really easy or Mark Travers basically just got sat down a bit too easy. I don't really know. But
I think with that goal, and there were a couple of other examples, and it was balls over the top, he just looked a little bit nervous to come off his line. I get it with the goal, you don't want to overcommit, and because at that type of situation, it can result in like a red card if you give away a foul. But get yourself out there and narrow the angle. But the balls over the top as well, he did seem to leave it quite late before he came out and collected, which was another thing that was kind of making me nervous with the performance. But like I say, it's his first game, same as it's like Whittaker's first game. But I'm not going to judge massively. It's just there were times yesterday where that performance was making me nervous.
yeah, Matt, what did you think of Travers and Co yesterday?
I actually liked Travers. I wouldn't say he did anything spectacular. He did make a few good saves, but I don't know if it's because the bar's been set so low with Boro's recent goalkeepers that I just feel a lot more reassured because he didn't do anything outlandishly crazy. So I think just because it was solid, it was better. But I do think he will improve. I agree on Whittaker. A bit underwhelmed. I don't know if it's because at Plymouth he was a superstar among players who clearly weren't as good as he is, whereas now he's amongst players who are a lot better and he probably won't stand out as much. So I don't know if that's perception. I don't know if that might not make him look as good because he's not the superstar in the team. But until we know where he's playing and his exact role in the team, I don't feel like I can judge him all that much yet. I'd like to hope we will see him just naturally improve as he has joined a new team full of new players. I agree on Giles. I really, really hope he doesn't let that get to him yesterday, because I thought he did pretty well. It was just nice to see, as you say, a left back putting in some quality balls. He also made a few good runs down the left. I mean, some of them were clearly not going to really come to anything, but he tried. He tried to knock the ball around their fullback or whatever it was and chase the ball down the line. Even if he didn't get on the end of it, he's got us up the pitch 30, 40 yards. So I thought there was some good effort from Giles, and I'm, again, desperately unlucky for what happened. What I will say, though, is I thought Ilin Jr.'s first couple of moments on the ball were really good. I was sort of off my seat a little bit when he first got the ball a couple of times. He looked strong and athletic and quick. He brushed a couple of their players when they were trying to get near him. He just brushed them off with strength. He looked really good. And I was willing us to get in the ball across to him a lot more, which we never did. So I liked him. I thought he had a good cameo given the time he had on the pitch. So the jury's out on most of them, but I'm happy for Travers and I'm happy for Giles being in the team. I think they're definite upgrades. The others we'll probably discuss when we get to the transfer side of the podcast. Scattergun, where do they fit? What's the point? We'll see. I don't know yet.
Yeah, the people around me were having a right old laugh about Illing Jr. and how far down his shorts were. Because you could see like the separation between like his t-shirt and the start of his shorts, and the people around me were like loving that for some reason. But yeah, you know what? I'm going to move on to the Sunderland goals because they all piss me off. I'll just be honest. The first one, Hackney blocks a shot from Chris Rigg in the box. The ball then ends up a few yards shy of the D, and there's a 2v1 in Boro's favour. There's Marcus Forss, Dan Neil, and Delano Bergzog. There is absolutely no way that Boro should be losing a 2v1 on the edge of their box. We do. Dan Neil steals in, and he scores. The second one, Luke Ayling's touch turns into a terrible pass, basically, because it was that bad. We lose the ball. Simple ball forward, they score from it. The third one, Marcus Forss caught on his heels, 09 steals in, punts that ball out to the left-hand side, and they score from Enzo Lefebvre's cross. All three goals come from Boro being sloppy in possession. And that's kind of ties into the discussion about Boro beating themselves, what you were mentioning earlier, Matt. When opposition fans come and listen to this podcast and they talk about, oh, you're not giving us credit. We're not giving credit because we see it from a Middlesbrough lens, and we see this so often of Boro losing the ball, not being aggressive enough, being weak, being powder puff, weak between Bergzog and, it was mainly Bergzog rather than Forss, although there's two Boro players in that area. We should have won that ball. We should have actually attacked ourselves, and there we are trying to defend a shot. The second one is just so poor from Ayling. His touch is horrendous. Morris isn't really expecting to take the ball in because it's just they're too close to each other, basically. They get in each other's way a little bit or in each other's space, and that opens up the space for the ball from Enzo Lefebvre to Wilson Isidore. All of them are just really poor, really avoidable. Mado and I were talking about it after the game on Tees yesterday, like so many goals you can look at this season and say, should have done better. Not could have done better, should have done better. And that's immensely frustrating. Boro could be in a position now where they're kind of established within the playoff picture. We're still in the playoff picture somehow, but they could be established in the playoff places. And we're not, and it feels like we're not because Boro are holding themselves back. We've got a really good potential team, and when we're good, we're very good. But when we're poor, we're immeasurably vulnerable. We're easy to target, easy to get at. And you kind of saw it in those Sunderland goals yesterday. So just come on, Boro, be better than that. And you know what? On that point, Carrick keeps coming out and saying, got to be better, got to do better. We haven't seen better yet. You know, we're in February now. It's
starting to turn in. It's starting to turn into like the Mowbray, it is what it is, or the Gareth Southgate will learn from this and be better next week. Like ultimately, it's the same thing every week and nothing changes.
Yeah, you know what? When like fans pick up phrases like that, doesn't that also fit into your narrative, Tom, about the start, like the beginning of the end?
I don't know. From a personal aspect, I don't remember the end of Southgate's reign that well. I remember I was never on board with him being our manager in the first place, so I always kind of had that bias. And I probably would have viewed it through that lens at the time with Mowbray. I think it's unfortunately one of the bits of legacy that he's kind of left at the club, other than the fact that he built the foundations of what Karanka went on to turn into a promotion winning team. There's still the negative parts that people remember, like Barnsley away, and then it is what it is. So I mean, there's maybe other managers who haven't been successful, or it's went downhill before they've gone, and they haven't had that kind of catchphrase before it's happened. But I suppose I can see what you mean there.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the start of the end, but what I do think it is it's the start of a disconnect between the fans and the manager. I'm seeing a lot more fans who are just checking out. They're just, you want fans to be on the end of every word the manager's saying. You want fans to be invested in what the manager's saying, the messaging, the pre-match press conferences, what comes after the game. I'm seeing so many fans who, and maybe a lot, some of it's down to just Carrick's personality, how calm he is, and fans want more. They want him to beat his chest and scream at people in the presses and whatnot, and flip the table and whatnot. But I do believe, despite that and his personality being a little bit more level-headed or whatever, I have seen a lot of fans who just say, I don't listen to what he says. I know what he's going to say. Same old this, same quote this, same that. And I think there is a degree of that does lead to a disconnect between the fans and the manager. That could potentially start a spiral that only goes one way. So although it might not be the start of the end, it's not a good sign.
No,
I would say, though, we've had managers where that has happened, and there has been that kind of like boring, repetitive press conference. But then on the other side of things, you had people like Neil Warnock, who, it was an entertaining press conference every time, but it didn't necessarily mean anything. So I think ideally you want to manage kind of in the middle of that. I still listen to all the Carrick's press conferences. I don't know why, because they're all the same. But, I still kind of tune in for them.
Yeah, I suppose it's just the informative nature of it, right? Knowing what the team news is and stuff. Speaking of team news, squad news, actually, we'll move on to the transfer window. There were 5 senior incomings: Travers, Giles, Edmondson, Whittaker, Illing Jr. and Iheanacho. 7 senior outgoings: Jones, Clark, Hamilton, Silverum changed loan clubs, so I guess he wasn't really actually here. And Matthew Hoppy. We found the answer to where is Matthew Hoppy. He's gone. Plus Engel and Latte-Laff. Latte-Laff confirmed today his move to Atlanta even, and Engel bound for FC Cincinnati. Other question again, interesting one. This will be an interesting discussion. How would you rate Boro's transfer window out of 10, and why?
I'd go with a 5. I'd go right down the middle. I think when we were signing individuals, there was a bit of a wow factor to it, as there always is, and a bit of a, oh, wow, that's a good player. He's a good player. He did that. He did this. And you get a little bit excited about that. But in the back of my mind, I still had certain areas where I thought, okay, we've brought Whittaker in, for example. We've brought in Giles, great. But we need to strengthen here. I still want us to strengthen here. The only area of the 5, when you talk of 6, if you include Edmondson, who we've brought in, where I thought we had to upgrade, was goalkeeper and left back. I think we have upgraded there, so I'm happy with Travers and Giles. I think they're 2 good signings to offer us more. But I am a little bit perplexed as to Morgan Whittaker and where he's going to play. Illing Jr. as well, another attacker. We mentioned the sort of lopsidedness of this team. I mean, he might be another Doak where we've just been opportunistic and it might prove to be absolutely fantastic. But Iheanacho, I'm very much on the fence. Having seen West Brom sign Armstrong from Southampton, I'm looking at that and thinking, God, that's probably a better player. He's 1 and 2, I think, on average in the Championship. So the individuals are fine, and yet Travers is an upgrade on what we had. Giles is an upgrade on what we have. but I can't get it out the back of my mind that we have not fixed what I thought were glaring issues. We are an Aidan Morris injury away from disaster. We've seen the result of what that midfield is like without him. And I know we tried, and the club, tried, and I'm not saying they haven't tried, but I'm underwhelmed that we've not backed up that position. And I agree when you say if Clark wants to go, fine, let him go. But I cannot believe we've left ourselves with three fit centre halves, because we know Rav and Fry's injury record is not the best. If one of them goes down, we're down to the bare bones. You might then have to move Ayling across, which leaves you with only Dijksteel at right back. He's injured as well. I just feel like for all the great incomers we've made individually, they look great, but we're a couple of injuries away from some areas of this team just falling apart. And there's certain areas that just have not been addressed, which I think were more important. We've always been a great attacking team. We've always been good defensively. We've always had good attacking players. We had to try and shore up the midfield and defensively, and yeah, we've not done that.
Yeah, I completely agree with Matt there. I'd have probably gone with a 6. Because looking at some of the moves, Travers in, that's an upgrade in goal. Giles in, he's an upgrade on Engel, who's gone. Whitaker in, arguably an upgrade on Jones. But then you look at some of the other updates, some of the, it's not even upgrades. Some of the other moves that we've made, Edmondson in, but then you let Clark go, 3 fit centre halves. Then Carrick gets asked about it, and he's like, "No, we'll be fine." I'm like, we haven't been up until this point. So what makes you so sure that, our training methods, which are clearly training with bricks, for the second half of the season, is going to result in no injuries at centre back? I'm confused at how you think that'll be fine. Like I said earlier, I get that the January window is not a great one for buying players in, but I think with, say, the signing of Illan Jr., if that, whatever fee we paid there, like a loan fee, and whatever wages we paid there, if that could have been used on a centre-back and more centre-mid cover, then I don't see the point in making that move. Obviously, it could just be that there were no centre-backs or centre-mids who were arguably good enough to come in, but then you keep Clark till the end of the season. And then obviously we've let our best striker go. Matthew Hoppy's now playing in the Danish league, so
how will we cope?
I don't know if Iheanacho's a good enough replacement for him, but we'll see. I was a little bit underwhelmed by the end of it, and again, don't want to sound ungrateful towards the club for that, because they have spent money and they have been a lot busier in this transfer window than I think any of us thought they were going to be. But I do think we've left ourselves lopsided coming out of it. And although at the start of this season, I thought we'd invested well, and I thought we had a squad that was, good enough to kind of build from, and we wouldn't need kind of like any big overhauls or anything like that. We're looking at the end of the season, and I'm thinking there's several players there that we need to move on, and we need to sign several more. It's just a little bit discouraging as a fan, kind of seeing this happening. I don't think we've left ourselves in a good position after January, and I'm not looking forward to yet another small rebuild in the summer.
You know what? Off the back of that, it always feels like Boro are taking steps back in order to take steps forward instead of just taking steps forward. Like this transfer window, I'd probably rate it a 5 out of 10. I like the signing of Matt Travers, good goalkeeper, exactly what we've needed. I like the return of Ryan Giles, mostly because I'm nostalgic, but I've said in the last podcast, he's got a very small window to rediscover his form. and scoring a late on goal in a Teeswear derby. I mean, that's not great, is it? Hopefully he bounces back from that. Whittaker, I'm not hot on that signing. That'll probably be an unpopular opinion, but I find Whittaker to be quite a limited player. Fine if he's cutting inside and shooting top bins every week, I'll take that. But we've got him at a fairly low ebb. He's not had a great season. He needs to rediscover that. So another player that needs to rediscover his form. The good thing with Whittaker, unlike Giles, he's here long term and not for 6 months. So that's good, at least. But again, he's the type of profile of a player that I just don't like, cutting inside and shooting. I've been massively scarred from Sammy Silvera, I think. And Illing Jr., I like what he can offer. I'm just intrigued at the fit, because he's a winger that wants to get wide and hug the touchline, get chalk on his boots. How will that work on the left-hand side with Ryan Giles? Because he's much the same. They could potentially clash. They could complement. I don't know. They could kind of take turns on who's going to get forward at any given opportunity. But basically, the best areas that you want to get both players in is high and wide on that left-hand side. I can understand why he was played on the right yesterday, but I hope that that's not somewhere that he's played frequently. I did watch a few clips of Illing Jr. on Y-Scout. He is adept at cutting inside on his right foot and putting a ball in swinging cross, or out swinging cross, sorry. But I don't know. I feel like we need to have him on that left-hand side to get the best out of him. And then Iheanacho, I think the jury's out with big boots to fill there with Lath leaving. He was uber effective in this system, and I'm hoping that Iheanacho is half of that efficiency, really. In terms of the squad makeup, this really irks me, but for me, my ideal approach to the window that Boro could take is signing 2 specialists per position. And by specialist, I mean that player's main position is, like, for example, number 10. So the second competition option is a number 10 still. Not a player that can do a job. I feel like Boro are relying too much on players that can do a job as their second option, like centre-back, for example. Luke Ayling can do a job, centre-back. Anthony Dijksteel can do a job, centre-back. Probably Howson as well. You're looking at number 10. Whittaker can do a job, number 10. Why not just sign a number 10? Like, why are we pulling players out of position? I understand that Boro like that versatility, but I'd much rather us have 2 players that are specialists in that particular position, and then if push comes to shove, that third option is somebody that can do a job. Because ultimately, the performance output, if Boro are expecting Whittaker to be as good at number 10 as he is at right wing, well, he's not going to be. So that really frustrates me in regards to Boro's kind of squad building. But 5 out of 10 for the window. Don't really think that it's improved us. And yeah, we've lost our main striker there, which is a big hit.
Yeah, I agree on what you said there, Dee, about the versatility of this Boro team. I think Carrick's always been quite hot on having attackers who can rotate and play in different positions. But I feel like if they're too versatile, if you've got too many players moving around and you've got injuries, you're then going from a very fluid team who might be able to play in different ways to then having square pegs in round holes. And that's when I think you just completely disconnect as a unit, as an attacking unit, and play breaks down. It just doesn't work. So I'm with you. I'd rather have 2 good players in every position who specialise there rather than, well, he can play there, he can play there, because we're not good with injuries. We're very unreliable when it comes to keeping players fit. And I think one injury crisis can make, as I say, look like we've got square pegs in round holes.
Yes. Right, there's no praise in place this week because we're a bunch of morning murals, so we will move on to podcast questions. Right, we'll crack on straight away. You know where to find us if you want to ask us a podcast question. We'll start with Charlie's. He asks, with the new signings, do you think we're now good enough offensively to counteract our defensive deficiencies to secure a playoff spot? Tom, I'll start with you with that one.
No.
How's just Tom answer that?
Yeah, classic one-word answer, but no. I think we saw it yesterday. I think there's things that need to be rectified before we can say that, and we need to be better drilled as a team to be able to do that. I don't want to see us thinking that we can go and outscore every other team, because ultimately we're going to have results like yesterday. And something I would love to see, and I mentioned this on the last pod I was on, and I don't understand why Boro don't do it. Just get Michael Carrick some help, like in terms of the coaching staff. Like I was thinking about this earlier, and I was talking to my dad about it. I was like, we did the same thing with Jonathan Woodgate. We gave him quite an inexperienced backroom team and expected him to kind of work within that. As much as the international experience of Carrick and Woodgate, and the captaincy experience of Grant Ledbetter and Alan Fettis working at Man United, they are all still young coaches, barring Fettis, but he is a goalkeeping coach, so I'm not really kind of judging him too much on in-game management there. But I suppose you've got Graham Carrick as well. I feel like we just need some experience on that coaching staff, and I don't get why, as a club, we're so averse to doing it. For me, you don't expect Carrick to know absolutely everything, and he is still learning on the job. He is in his third season as a head coach now, and that is it. He's had 3 years of experience as a head coach. You've got Woodgate there, who has been a head coach before, who can help, and Ledbetter and Graham Carrick, but none of them really have that experience of do this and we can turn a game around. And I get the whole everyone in the coaching staff's young coaches, and don't get me wrong, they've developed players really well over the last couple of years, and I think the sales that we've made prove that. But like I say, you don't expect Carrick to know everything. You wouldn't expect him to be training the goalkeepers. The goalkeeping coach does that. You wouldn't expect him to be doing the fitness training. The fitness coach does that. You don't expect him to have all the answers in terms of in-game management. Just get someone who is a specialist, who can add a little bit of experience to that backroom team. Have a word with Carrick when things aren't necessarily going right, as with yesterday, and just make these changes and just get a little bit more discipline into the team, because what we saw yesterday, if that's an indication of how the rest of the season's going to go, I dread to think where we're going to finish. And if playoffs was the goal, I think we'll be looking mid-table if we perform like we were yesterday.
Yeah, there's a naivety to us, isn't there? There's a naivety to the team, and I think there's also a naivety with Carrick. Matt, JT asks, is Luke Ayling up to the standard for a team supposedly pushing for playoffs? Luke Ayling was getting a lot of stick yesterday. To be honest, he got absolutely roasted by Enzo Lafayette.
Yeah, I'd have to say I don't think he is, and it's nothing against Ayling as a character. I think he's a great character, and there may be characteristics within the dressing room that he offers that others might not. But I think in terms of the standard of right back, I think there has been a decline this season. Last season I thought his attacking output was surprisingly really, really good with the number of assists that he had, and maybe that might have masked any defensive frailties that may or may not have been there at the time. But this season he's not offered as much going forwards, and I do fear whenever he is up against a remotely top-end championship winger, he struggles. And I'm looking ahead to the playoffs, and I'm thinking to the Burnley games where Dijksteel played and did really, really well up against Koleosho, and it might have been Hannibal on the two occasions we played them. And then I'm thinking back to when Luke Ayling played, I don't know if it was in the cup game early in the season, maybe I'm thinking of last season, but whenever he's come up against, or would I trust him up against a Willie Nonto or a Solomon or whoever else Leeds have got in their front line, same with Raksaki at Sheffield United or whatever, and then obviously Lafay absolutely tore him a new one yesterday. So I do worry even if we got in the playoffs, never mind, actually getting in the playoffs, if we were playing in the playoffs, I wouldn't trust him as a starting right back in games like that, going up against such quality opposition. But even getting there at the minute, it's proven to be a struggle for him, and it's a shame because I really like him as a character. But I do now, going back to the transfer window, talk, I look at the right back situation, and it's another area where I know we brought a young lad in from Celtic, but he's clearly not going to step into the first team. I am looking at that and thinking, okay, Dijksteel's probably leaving in the summer. Tommy Smith has been injured for so long. There's no guarantees on him making any real, return. And if he does, how far off is he going to be? You're leaving yourself with just Luke Ayling. And I would have thought, knowing how we operate as a club, we would have maybe started to look at a long-term replacement for him now. So I am a little bit surprised we've not looked at right back either. But at the minute, I'm sorry to say, I'm struggling to make a case for him.
Yeah, you know what? It took me a little bit to come around to Luke Ayling's permanent signing, because I remember saying on a podcast it's very short term. But I came around because of his link up with Latilaf on that right hand side, and we haven't really seen any link up with him and anyone on that right hand side. So what was good of Luke Ayling's loan spell is now no longer even there. So what have you got now then? You've got an aging fullback who is incredibly susceptible against a decent winger. And to be fair, Leeds fans did warn us about that. It feels to me like Boro are behind schedule with their right-hand side, because we brought in Morgan Whittaker to replace Isaiah Jones, who I think should have been moved on in the summer. So we've taken 6 months to get to a point where I feel like we should have been in the summer. And then in regards to our right backs, I feel like the writing's been on the wall for Dijksteel for quite some time. I'm actually surprised that he's still here, but I am enjoying his resurgence, shall we say, under Michael Carrick. We will end up strengthening, improving, changing our right back situation this coming summer, when really we should have done it in summer 2024. So I feel like there's a degree of ruthlessness in the window that Boro just haven't really done, and therefore we leave ourselves in a position where we're going to need to strengthen it anyways, because Luke Ayling was never the mid to long term answer. So that's massively frustrating in regards to Boro's squad building as well. Here's a question for all of us. RM asks us to describe how we're feeling about this Boro team in one word, and they say apathy. Matt, do you want to give your one word answer to that?
He's probably picked the best word, other than frustrating, but I feel like that's one that's been used to absolute death. Just exasperating or infuriating. Infuriating. They made me want to tear my hair out.
Tom?
Tired. It sums up my feeling towards it at the moment.
You know what? I'll go with an acronym. CBA. We just see the same things happen over and over and over again. And it's a shame. I will say it's a really big shame, because this Middlesbrough team has potential. This Middlesbrough team on their day are really quite talented and really quite fun to watch. And yeah, I feel like far too often we're left with this feeling of, well, we've seen that again. Bad predictability. We've seen it far too often. So hopefully sometime soon we can just see that end, because my God, I feel like I'm aging. We'll leave it there then. It's been quite a therapeutic podcast. If you've enjoyed it, please give us a like, give us a comment, make sure to subscribe and give a 5-star rating to this podcast on your podcast provider. We will be back after probably next weekend actually, and hopefully Boro have turned around their form, but let's be honest, we're not expecting it at this point. Take care, and up the Boro Breakdown.